We are back with our second guest, Debbie Jordan Kauble, who many of you may know from Bud Hopkins' books Intruders, using the pseudonym Kathy Davis. Debbie, welcome to the show. Welcome to the events.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me.
Now, let me interject something personally. This book, Intruders, was the first book that I had any experience on alien abduction on, and I was blown away of what you went through. So for those who don't know the story directly, let's take us back to 1983.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago. I can't believe it's been over 30 years, actually. But at the time, I was a single mother with 2 little boys, and I was living with my mother and father. And the event of June 30, 1983 was the catalyst for, the rest of my life. I was born in a family that had always had strange things happen to them. We always had a lot of paranormal, what people would describe as paranormal events happen around us. And my parents were open-minded people, and they would talk about it around the table. But this event of June 30, 1983 was like, that night Debbie died and I was born. I mean, it did something to me and changed me forever. And a lot of memories of old things came running back that we had, put away. And just, anyways, I was living with my parents. I had 2 little boys. I was getting ready to go do some sewing with a gal who lived behind us. She was a seamstress extraordinaire, and she'd pay me a few bucks to cut patterns for her. So I was going to go do that. While I was standing at the kitchen window washing my hands, ready to leave the house, I noticed there was a light on at the pool house. And I knew that was wrong. It shouldn't be there. And also something struck me odd about it. It was like not quite the right color. And I mentioned it to my mom. She didn't seem concerned about it. So I gathered up my things, got in my car, and the way the house is configured, you could drive down the side drive and go around the back of the house to where my dad's workshop was. So I decided to do that before I left, just to make sure there was no burglars or anything out there, not thinking about, UFOs or anything like that. When I got back to the side of the house where I could see, I noticed that the light was gone, but I also noticed a pedestrian door to the garage that was attached to the house was now open. Instead of stopping, and I don't know why I didn't stop, I just went on to Deanna's, which was like 2 minutes to the house, really the street behind us. As soon as I got there, I called Mom, and I said, something's not quite right. And I told her, and I said, do you want me to come home? She said, no, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. My dad was working second shift at Ford, and he wasn't home. It was just Mom and my 2 little kids. And I said, are you sure? And she's like, I'll lock the door. Everything will be fine. So I'm like, okay. I hung up the phone, and no sooner did I hang it up than it rang. And I picked it up automatically out of instinct, and it was my mother. And she said, I want you to come home right now. And I'm like, why? She sounded afraid, and if you knew my mother, you know nothing scared that woman, ever. And that kind of took me off guard. So she just said, my friend heard my panic in my voice, and her husband piped up and said, oh, tell her to call the sheriff, that's what we pay him for. And she heard Larry, and Mom said, no, I want you. I don't want to call anybody else. I want you here. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm on my way. So I dropped everything, got my car, and went right back home. Pulled up to the side of the house, got out. Mom was standing in the pedestrian door, or the patio door, like we call it the Florida room. And I walked in, and I knew Dad had kept an unloaded rifle next to the trash masher. And I picked it up. And I was proceeded to go outside and look around. And you have to know me then, I was not a brave person. Why I even did that to begin with, I can't tell you, I don't know. But Mom says, and she makes the comment, that's not loaded. And I said, they don't know that. I'll just swat them with it. feeling all brave and puffed up, I walked out there, looked at the pool house, looked inside the pump house. There was nothing there. Knowing that my dog had been in the garage and knowing she had to be out now because the door was open, I kind of looked for her a little bit, and I did find her under my dad's ladder truck, but she was just totally hysterical and would not come out, even for me. So I went back to the garage, and I walked in the garage, Fuse choice cuss words like I know you're in here and I have a gun, you know, give it up now. There was a couple mattresses leaned up against the wall, and I thought, you're behind those mattresses, I know it. So I'm like Elmer Fudd with the gun going around that corner, you know, I'm coming. And all of a sudden it hit me. I felt like I was on fire. I can't describe it to you any other way except for I felt like my skin was suddenly burning on fire. And I panicked, and I said to myself, oh God, I got to get out of here. And I headed to the pedestrian door, and when I got into the doorway, bam, I got hit in the chest by something. And Travis said something about a sound. This light had a sound, and it was like a boom. It hit me, and it started here, and it slowly spread through my whole body. I couldn't see anything. It was like all I could see was white. My eyes were just berserk, and it felt like I could feel every molecule of my body vibrate. That's how and I know it couldn't have lasted more than a couple of seconds, because I don't think I could have survived that. But it felt like time stopped, and it just felt like it continued. And I thought, I'm dying. This is how I'm going to die. And I still didn't know why. And then it stopped. The vibrating stopped. The light intensity backed off, but my eyes were totally toast. It's like when your friend catches you off guard taking a picture, and then you have like these blots in your vision and you can't see anything. And that's what my eyes were like. And I don't remember at what point I got from the pedestrian doorway about 20 feet out onto the concrete patio at the back of the house. But at that point, somehow I moved out there. I felt a pulling down on my shoulder. I felt a burning sensation in this ear that felt like a hot poker in my head. And I heard someone, but didn't see anyone, but I heard someone say it was unfortunate, this pain that I had. At that point, I noticed a light out in front of me about the size of a basketball. It was a soft light, and it was maybe 20 or 30 feet in front of me out in the yard, about the same height as I am, and I'm like 5'2½". And it went down to the ground really slow, and then it came back up. And I felt the distinct impression that it was looking at me. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And then that's when I noticed off to the left of me this thing. And I hesitate to call it a ship. I don't know what it was. It wasn't very big. And like I said earlier, I noticed some movement in the yard in front of me, and I thought they were like children's size. There were 6 of them, and they suddenly, once I noticed them, they kind of moved into a line and went down the yard towards this thing. And then I couldn't see them anymore. I couldn't see a lot of detail because my eyes were still so jacked up. I just knew they were small people. And like in retrospect, there's no way that 6 of those guys could go into this little thing and fly anywhere. It'd be a little crowded. So I don't know what this thing was. And I don't even really know if it was totally on the ground or not. Because it seemed to wobble a little bit, almost as if, like when you look at something through the heat of a fire and it kind of wavers, well, the ground kind of, it kind of looked like that. And the thing at one point kind of looked like it bobbled just ever so slightly. I didn't want to look at this thing. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see it. But I couldn't not look at it. I had to know where this thing was in relationship to me at all times. And it could not come 1 inch closer to me because I would lose it, you know. All I kept thinking was, just please don't touch me. Please don't touch me. And the next thing I remember is I heard my voice. I remember thinking, oh my God, my kids, because they were in the house. And immediately I heard that same voice say, your children are fine. And then I heard my name. Well, later on, it was like a week later when I found out that the person who called my name was actually my mother. Because it was a week later that my mother finally remembered why she called me home. I'm like, thanks, Mom. She's like, oh, I remember why I called you home. We're just sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. And she said, I was standing at the kitchen window and I saw this ball of light around the bird feeder. And I thought it was a flashlight beam or something that illuminated. And I thought somebody was out there with a flashlight beam. And then she goes, then I thought maybe it was the headlights, somebody pulling up the side drive, and I couldn't see any cars. And this light got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it disappeared. And as soon as it disappeared, I got it in my head, you needed to come home. So that's when I called you. I'm like, really? Okay. So, and then funny thing to that, like 25 years later, I get a letter from a woman who lived the street behind us. And she didn't give me the exact date, but she narrowed it down to that year, and in that couple of months, her son was having a sleepover in their garage, and their garage faced the back of our house, but there was the big woods between it because it was big, huge lots. And the boys came running in screaming hysterically because they'd seen what they said to her were like hundreds of basketball-sized balls of light floating around in the woods. And when they went out to look, they couldn't see anything, but the boys were visibly upset, so much so they never had any more sleepovers in the garage. But I got this letter 20-some years later, so I've got to think there was some connection to this. She got the address either through Bud's book or through ours. I think maybe it was through Intruder book. So that next morning, okay, well, back to that night. After I heard my name, I started to walk up the back of the house, and with each step I took, everything that just transpired went away in my head. And I got up to my mom, and I remember her saying, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And I said, "It's cool. It's all good." But I felt weird. I felt very weird. I felt icky. I wanted to get wet. I didn't want to sew. I called my friend. I'm like, I'm feeling weird. Let's go swim. We want to do something. We'll go swimming. Okay. So I went. They came over. She brought her daughter. We walked across the backyard to the pool, and as we walked across this one spot, which turns out was this 49-foot streak that came off this circle, her daughter's feet became tingly and burning. We thought she'd stepped on a bee. And then the numbness started to go up her leg, and I started feeling nauseated. Deanna started feeling nauseated, so did her daughter. We're in the pool like 10 minutes. And I start seeing halos around all the lights, just like you did when you were a kid and you'd stick your head under the water and open your eyes and chlorine would mess them all up. But I had not stuck my head in the water. And I'm feeling really bad. Everybody's feeling funky, so we just cut it short. They go home. And by the time I'm out of the pool walking up to the house, here comes Daddy. And he didn't get off work till 11:30. He didn't get home till about 11:30. And I had left to go sew shortly before 8. Right around or a little before 8 p.m. So all this time had passed. I don't remember 15 minutes of it. And to this day, I still don't remember a whole lot. And I'm kind of okay with that because I'm functioning just fine. But I have dreams sometimes.
The beings that you saw, the 6 around this, hindsight would be a crap, but she didn't know what it was at the time.
I still don't know what it is,
yeah.
Truthfully.
Were there any movements of theirs that were erratic or anything that
They glided like glass, smooth. I said they walked to this thing, but yet their movements were very smooth, like they were sliding. I don't know if they were even touched the ground or not. Like I said, I couldn't see. My eyes are still messed up to this day. I got diagnosed with macular degeneration and cataracts in the mid-30s, and I just had cataract surgery 2 weeks ago on this last eye. My vision, my eyes were never the same after that. The next morning when I woke up, my eyes were swollen, completely shut. I was in so much pain that my mother took me to the emergency room. So happened there were eye doctor specialists across the street, and was in the emergency room for some reason. So they all shuffled me to his office because he had all the stuff where he could look at my eyes better. And one of the first things he asked me was, "Have you looked into the arc? Have you been staring into the arc of a welder's torch?" And I'm like, "What? No. Not, what is wrong with me? My eyes were on fire. It felt like I had eye glass in them. I couldn't even open them." So like 3 weeks of gels and drops and pills and, gels and drops. And I just had a really bad case of conjunctivitis is what they called it. But my eyes were never right after that. They would just water and burn for no reason. And they still, 30 years later, still do. And then my vision got crazy. I became extremely farsighted. And when I had my cataract surgery, my vision, or my reading was like 3 + 7.5, and that wasn't strong enough. But it messed my eyes up. And also, for that year afterwards, I think I went insane. Seriously, I think I had a nervous breakdown. I was sick all the time. Everything that came through town I got, glands swollen, stomach problems, irregular heartbeats, panic attacks, rashes, fingernails got all papery and wavy and peeled off. My teeth, gums bled, my hair got thin, and it has never come back. But, and I didn't know what was causing it. That the doctors, 3 times in 1 week to emergency room, when they know your first name when you walk in, you got a problem.
Yeah.
So, mental, they thought it was mostly mental. And I was having a nervous breakdown because my mom would be like, I would sit up all night in a chair between my kid's bed and just sit there waiting. I couldn't sleep until the sun came up and there were other people awake. But at night I would sit by my kid's bed and wait and watch. And I couldn't use the bathroom in the bathroom upstairs where the window overlooked the place where this mark in the yard was. Because at night, during the day I was okay, but at night I couldn't go in there because I kept feeling like something was coming back to get me, I went crazy. I had a nervous breakdown. I wasn't diagnosed with that, but I'm telling you, if I didn't have one, that's what it was like, I bet you.
This burning sensation that you felt when you were on your way to the pool, was that identical to what you felt the night before, on June 30th?
No, mine was more of a tingly numbness at that point, just where it was on my feet. Mm-hmm. So anyway, see this mark that was left in the yard, nobody in my family looked out the window for 2 days after that. It was just me and Dad and Mom and the 2 little kids. But it was coming up on the 4th of July weekend, so a whole family was going to come and they were going to light off fireworks, 4th of July, So they all get there and they all head out to the pool, and here comes my nephew running back and he goes, "Grandma, what's wrong with your yard?" We just never looked. I don't know why, but so we all went out there. We're all standing around this crazy thing. This circle was like 8 feet in diameter. Strip on it was 49 feet long. And my mom says, "That's where the UFO landed." And I looked at my mom and I said, "What?" Like that. And as soon as the words left my mouth, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because it was just like, oh. I started seeing those big black eyes on this mark, and all these memories just started to hit me like a ton of bricks, flowing back, and I started shaking, and I couldn't hardly breathe, and I couldn't say a word to any of these people, because what was I going to say? First of all, I couldn't remember. I just remembered the terror. That came back. And that from that point on, I just went kind of crazy. So this mark lasted for, I'm going the wrong way. It lasted in the yard for several years. Snow melted off of it the first year. Every time it snowed, you could count on it within, I don't know, an hour of the snow, and the snow would start to melt away from it. I still have chunks of this dirt 30-some years later that you can put in a glass of water, and when you go back in a day, you still got a chunk of dirt. It's like a rock now. It's not dirt anymore. So
now, you had a family sighting with your mother in 1985. Let's talk about that, or unless you want to talk about this.
Okay, that's 2 years later, when the grass did finally start to grow in. It came in thicker and darker and almost a purplish color, very hardy. The dandelions were huge. We had tomato plants out by that mark in the yard, and the tomatoes, I don't know, I didn't take a picture of them, but they were huge, and you couldn't eat them because the acid would just take your skin off your lips. One strip of trees, all of the leaves in front of the mark turned yellow and fell off in July, you know. So then in April, that's what I drew, that basically what I thought I saw back there in the yard. That, I went too quick. That's the face that I started to remember seeing after somebody pulled their finger out of the dike. And also was a dream I had back in '78. It came into my apartment with a black box. That's another story. I always called it the dream. Anyway, I always said it was just a dream, and I couldn't imagine anybody else had ever seen anything. And this was back in '78. You don't see this stuff at Walmart on the lunch boxes like you do now, you know? You didn't see this on TV. So when Bud whips this picture out and shows me this picture of somebody else's drawing, at first I thought it was mine. And then when I realized it wasn't, I'm like, where did you get that? And he told me, I puked. I literally went upstairs and puked because that made it impossible for me to deny that something happened, because that woman would have had to climb in my head to see this and draw this like this. You know what I'm saying?
Now, that essentially proved to you that what was happening wasn't real. I want to go into what happened with Bud Hopkins, but we're going to take a quick break. Everybody will be right back with Debbie Jordan Kauble in just a few. All right. Okay. All right, now we are back with Debbie Jordan Kauble. Round of applause, everybody. Now, Bud Hopkins was a big inspiration for a lot of people, and you were the basis of the book Intruders. How did you get involved with him to the point of him showing you McBride's drawing, which was identical to yours?
Libraries were cheap, free entertainment, and I was a single mother with no money. So I'd go to the library every week and get movies and books for me and the kids. And I picked up a stack of books one time, and Missing Time was in that stack of books. I thought I knew what it was about, but I was wrong. When I started reading it and realized what it was about, I had panic attack. I would read a chapter, have a panic attack, go to the emergency room thinking I was dying, read a chapter, have another panic attack. And my mother finally said, you need to take that book back to the library because we can't afford this. So I took it back, and then all this stuff happened June 30, '83, and the book started coming back in my mind. I'm like, surely to God, that can't be what happened here. What the hell's going on? My sister, who's 11 years older than me, had experience in 65, taking my mom to a bingo game where she always claimed she saw a UFO, and then suddenly it was dark out and time to pick mom up from bingo. You know, all this time had passed, and we always kind of made fun of her. We played poker every Friday night. We're a piece of work, really. We're quite an entertaining family, but we used to play poker every Friday night, and one of our, staples was, hey, Kathy, tell us about the UFOs, And Kathy, she'd start to talk about it, and somebody'd say something snotty, and then she'd get mad, and that'd be the end of it. We believed her. We just liked picking on her. That's all. It was fun. But, so I thought, okay, I went back to this library and got this book because I knew there was a place in the back where you could write this guy. I wrote like 20 letters, threw them all away. Then I decided to just kind of throw my sister under the bus and write about her, which, she mad. But so I wrote about her and told Bud all about Kathy's stuff. And then like the last page was like, oh, by the way, this thing happened in June, and it left this mark, and I had these pictures that I sent. And I gave it to my mom to mail. And my mom later said, I was going to throw that letter away like 3 times. And something came over me, and I found myself in front of a mailbox, remembered it was in my purse, and dropped it in the mail. Didn't hear anything for a while, and then all of a sudden I come home of an evening, and Mom says, "You know that guy you wrote that book that you wrote a letter to? He called." And I'm like, "No way!" And she said, "Yeah, way. He called. What are you going to talk? What are you going to call him back? What are you going to tell him?" I'm like, "Oh my God, Kathy's going to kill me." That's all I could think about was, "Oh my God, Kathy's going to kill me," because I'm the one. I didn't tell her I had wrote him. She was mad, really mad, but she got over it. Anyway, so I called him, and from that point on, that ensued this 3-year investigation. He came to my house, met my family, met the people I work for, talked to neighbors, talked to friends, family friends, and then it was time. He wanted me to come to New York and see Dr. Kumar. I'm a single mother, don't have any money, living with my parents, trying to get my stuff together. So I sold my washer and dryer I had in storage for a bus ticket. And here's this crazy 23-year-old woman going to New York City, the big city, New York, by myself. I was so chicken about getting lost. I had this phobia about being lost, so I couldn't even go across town. Here I am going to New York City to meet some strange man who wrote a book about UFOs. And halfway to New York, I thought to myself, what in the hell are you doing? This guy could be an axe murderer or some psycho crazy for all you know. And so I'm like, well, I'm already here. It's done. So I took this leap of faith, and he saved my life. It was the best move. That moment in my life changed everything about me and my world forever. I owe everything I have and everything I am to him.
This is a two-pronged question. Yes, Spud Hopkins was definitely an inspiration for all, and we definitely have to continue to honor him since his passing. This is a two-pronged question. A lot of people that have been taken, when they come back, they sort of have abilities, poltergeist, paranormal, psychic abilities. Did you have that? And the second part of the question is, overall, how did you behave differently after you were taken in 1983?
Oh, like I said, I just went crazy. I had like a nervous breakdown. Everyone all the females in my family have always been different. Like I told you, my little sister has been the standout amongst us, although she's the one that has the least amount of reporting strange activity, UFO-wise. But she is like John Edwards and Teresa Caputo all wrapped into one little redhead, and she will blow your socks off. She says she talks to dead people, and I think she does. When she was old enough to be able to speak to us so we can understand her, had always said she sees colors around people. And when people were sick, their colors were different. Some people left sparklies everywhere. I was a sparkler. Because she told Mom, my fingertips look like sparklers on the 4th of July when you write your name in the air. But she said, not everybody's like that, but a lot of our family was. It's always the women. Then my older sister, she was intuitive in many ways. And then I have this, I feel people. I can look at you and I feel what you are immediately. The older I get and the more I trust that, the better it gets, the more accurate it is. And sometimes I wish I could shut it off because I hear things I don't want to know. But it's just who I am. It got more intense after that. Right after that happened in '83, for like a year and a half or 2 years, I would have all this information that would just like fly into my head. And it would be so annoying that it would wake me up in the middle of the night. I'd be driving down the street and I'd have to pull over because I couldn't think of anything else but this. I carried sketchbooks with me and notebooks with me everywhere I went. And once I would get hit with something like this, I would pull over, write it down. And once I wrote it down, go away, leave me alone, I'm good. And then I'm not an artist, but I was able to draw things, certain things. If I looked at a blank piece of paper, it's almost like it projected onto the paper and all I had to do was color it in, and there it was. I saw shapes, I saw symbols, I saw numbers, I heard things. Sometimes I heard like I was overhearing conversations that had nothing to do with me, but I'm not sure who was talking to who because there wasn't anybody there. But I wasn't involved in it. It's just like I happened to be there and heard it. Years later, this comes in handy because I get involved with the paranormal community, so they say, because I believe there's a big connection between all of this. Everything is connected. We're all connected. And they call me the antenna. So my specialty are what they call EVPs. I can record things that are just crazy. I mean, I got a recording of a disembodied little girl's voice saying, "Hi, Ginger," to a dog that was in a living room there was nobody in. I mean, but they call me the antenna. But I've been doing that for about 30 years. So I collected seeds and things for like a whole year. Seeds, nuts, flowers, pine cones, everything natural. And my room looked like a botany scientist laboratory. And then one morning I woke up and it was all gone. We had tons of paranormal activity. Things became missing. And then I would find them, like my ring that my boyfriend gave me. For 3 days it was missing. Couldn't find it anywhere. And suddenly I was drawn to my son's bedroom. Went in there, run the sweeper, still no ring. I went and got a claw hammer because I was so obsessed with it being here now that I ripped the carpeting up from the tack strip and then pulled the padding up from the stapling, and in the middle of the room, under the stapled, tacked down carpeting and padding was my ring.
Wow.
How I knew it was there, and my mom walks in and she's like, "What in the hell are you doing?" And I couldn't even talk to her. I was so obsessed with doing this, and there it was. I mean, I've had blue balls of light swirl around my head that other people have seen shoot through my house. We had something that we called being baptized. Happened in my house, my sister's house, and my parents' house. You could be walking through the living room, whatever, bam! A drop of water would hit you right here on the forehead. And it was there, you could see it, it's wet, it would run down your nose, always right here. And it was so annoying and it happened so often that we called it, I just got baptized again. You know, it's just weird stuff like that.
Going back to when you said the sketches you were made,
Yeah.
Didn't some of them resemble some of the crop circles?
Yes, and that's a sculpture I made. I wanted to touch something. I'll go back to that in a minute. Yeah, I started doing these drawings in 1985, in 1984, in 1985, and I gave them to Bud. And then I became aware a few years later of the crop circle phenomenon. And when I watched it on TV and first saw some of them, they took my breath away. They made my hair. The first one I ever saw literally knocked me off the couch because I knew it meant something. It was important. I don't know what, and I still don't know what, but it means something. And some of them I know are made by people, and I get that, and almost can get a feeling almost immediately when I look at it, whether it was made by people or not, just by looking at it or feeling it, I don't know. But most of these drawings that I did in that 1 year, and then they ended up showing up in crops like 10 years later. And the thing is, I'm not the only person who did this. I know personally a couple more people that had experiences like me that were doing the same thing. I don't know how many more hundreds of people are out there, and I don't know what it means. So, and they're not quite the same, but, and that thing, I saw that moving on like a three-dimensional screen. I thought it was alive at first. I have no idea. It just kind of turned. I don't know what it was.
This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that is, but I saw it I saw it when I was somewhere else. I don't know where I was because I don't remember getting there. That's a cover of the book. My sister Kathy and I wrote a companion book years later to Abducted or Intruders, because Bud, I met so many people because of the book Intruders, so many people like me and my family, and we had so many questions, and there were so many other stories and things about our experiences about my family that I wanted to share more with people. I can't just sit here and talk to you about one incident. June 30, 1983 is the incident that started my journey. But I am talking about an entire life here, and there's so much, 56 years of it. There's so much And it's so confusing that I wanted to put some of it down so that I could keep track of it and not confuse people and still get our story out. And there's still more since this. This was published in '92, and I got more.
There was an incident with your house after a tornado. Can you talk about that?
Well, we'll go back to that. That's me and Bud. Oh,
Go back.
huh. That's me and Bud. That's how much I love him. I love that picture. Like
We
I
all
said,
love Bud.
he's a good man.
Yeah.
That's my house after November 17th. And I was underneath all that mess, and the rescue people pulled me out from under it. I didn't have a scratch on me.
Wow.
I was blessed. My house was totaled. I lost my car. I lost all my stuff. I don't care about stuff. Somebody takes care of me and gives me what I need, so I'm grateful and I'm blessed. But yeah, that happened on November 17th. And I mean, my life, forget about paranormal stuff or whatever you want to call it, just my life's been crazy. I mean, I lived through this. My late husband committed suicide, and I was standing in the backyard watching him when he did it. I mean, I've been through things that people don't survive, but I'm a survivor, and I continue to. So I know I am here because of some greater purpose. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what it is. I kind of got an idea, but you know, if that didn't kill me, nothing's going to kill me. And I'm not scared anymore. I had the fear, like Travis talked about, the terror, the sheer terror. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress after June 30, 1983, and then again after this tornado. But I don't have that terror anymore. And in retrospect, I think things changed for me too. I don't think things were done to me with an intentional intention to harm by any means.
Some people, after they've been taken, obviously they go through trauma. I mean, you're told monsters don't exist. Monsters pluck you out of your bedroom, take you aboard these exotic spacecraft, and do medical experiments on you. I mean, of course, it's bizarre in your mind. But years later, a lot of them will say, when asked, if you had the choice of never having had this lifetime of abductions or not, would you have not happened? And a lot of the abductees turn around and say, I would never change it for my life. Do you regret the fact that they chose you and have been taking you all your life?
Well, first of all, I don't know whether I was chosen or not. Whatever happened, happened. Maybe I was just in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time. Depends on your perspective. But I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything about any of the weird stuff that's happened. I wouldn't change anything about that. I wouldn't change anything about my late husband. I would not change one thing about my life. I have not one regret, because every single thing that I have lived through has made me who I am right now. And I am the strongest person that I know. And I know there isn't anything I can't get through. That's not a bad thing. I will take that and be happy with it. And
one of the biggest prerequisites that it seems to be for being an abductee is that your parents were abducted, and hence your children may follow suit. You mentioned your sister having that incident, I believe in the 60s. Do you know of your parents or grandparents or your children or grandchildren have any experiences?
well, my mother and I shared this experience in April of '84, where this thing flew over the house, and it was absolutely huge. It absolutely covered the sky over the house. And Mom was out in the front porch when she saw it coming. I pulled up in the driveway because I saw it coming from the road as I was coming home. I pulled into the driveway, come screaming up the front door. I hear this thing comes over the house. My mom's standing there with her mouth hanging open going, oh my God, it's beautiful. And I'm looking at her like, what? Really? I am freaking out. I can't handle it. I'm so scared. I run in the house. I'm like, come on, Mom, get in the house. I run, as it passes over the house, I run through the house to the back door, and I'm out the back door watching it pass over the house thinking, oh my God, what in the hell is this? When it got over the house, all the lights came on, and it was just with this audible whomp sound, all these lights came on. And it slowly passed the house, turned around and went back the other way, and I just knew there'd be a million police reports and it would be in the paper. And Not one thing was said anywhere. And eventually, when we made this report, we were led to Dr. Heineck, who was in Chicago at the time, and he called us several times. And these are the drawings my mom and I did of what we saw. And Dr. Heineck was very nice, and he said he had come to the conclusion in some of his cases that maybe only certain people were meant to see certain things. And that's why nobody else reported this, because this thing was so huge. It was like bigger than the house, right over the house. I mean, it was huge. I can't believe no one saw it.
A lot of people have, when they're taken on craft, they want to remember it, and they're told by the extraterrestrials that, no, you're not going to remember this, or you will remember it at a later date, almost as if they have a mission, as if something's going to happen here on Earth, and then there's going to be a mission. For instance, Jim Sparks is supposed to save stop the trees from being cut down and calm people. Do you believe you have a mission that these extraterrestrials instilled in you subconsciously?
I'm a teacher. If I say one word to somebody who needed to hear that word, I did what I came here to do. I feel that I am supposed to open minds. I don't ask you to believe anything I say, because frankly, had I not lived it or seen it, I wouldn't believe it either. It wouldn't fit in my world, but it is what it is. And I change daily. I'm flux. I am always changing and growing, but the facts remain the facts. But I believe that I am here to be some kind of a guide or teacher to help open minds and comfort people and get them to understand themselves.
One of the times you were taken aboard the craft, you were actually shown a hybrid baby, and they told you it was yours. What was your reaction when you found that this was yours?
I was mad because it was mine and I wanted it.
And what was their reaction when you wanted to keep it and they wouldn't allow you?
I was told that I could not keep it alive, that I didn't have what it needed to sustain life, and but I was told that she would always know who I was, and that I would see her again. I was promised to see her again. And there were a couple times in my life after that, and not dreams, but actually I ran in like when I lived in my apartment. I looked up one day, and you know how the privacy fences have little slots between them and you could see. I looked up and I saw an eye and a blonde head and then a black outfit all the way down to black shoes. But it was only about the size of a 10-year-old. I mean, what kind of 10-year-old wears all black, you know? And my head's not clicking at the time. I'm just seeing the eye and the kid, and I see her, and immediately I'm like, that's her. And I jumped up and I ran to the patio door. She took off running. I got through my back patio, got the gate open and looked, and there was no one there. I did not imagine that. I was wide awake. There was someone there who looked like that. Why she popped in my head, I don't know. But there was no kid anywhere around. I ran all the way around the side of the apartment building, looking both ways, and I saw no one. But I saw her.
Were you aware of any other hybrid children you may have had with these extraterrestrials?
You know, when I got pregnant and right before I got married, I've always assumed that I got pregnant by my boyfriend who became my husband. And I had medical records to prove my pregnancy, you know, and then had the weird dreams, and then woke up knowing there was something wrong, and then further testing showed I was no longer pregnant. And then more weird dreams. I've always referred to these things as dreams because that's how I live with it. So that's how I will continue to. Whether they are or not, I don't know. I can tell you what I remember. And I do remember another child, an infant that I saw somewhere, and I don't know where I was, I don't know how I got there, but it was a male. This child was a male, and he had big brown eyes. But when he looked at me, he looked very sad and sick, but he looked smarter than anybody in the world. I mean, when I looked into his eyes, I saw the wisdom of the world in this child's face, you know, and I felt maternal to this child, and then they took him away, you know, these people, whatever they were.
We can go on for hundreds of hours because of all the experiences you've had, but we've sadly run out of time. Just
Sorry.
as I asked Travis, I'm going to ask you, if you have one message to give out to everybody out here today and everybody who's going to see this in the future, what would you have to say?
Same thing that Travis says. Keep an open mind with this. I mean, I can understand that if you didn't experience anything strange like this, it's going to be very hard to understand it or accept it. There is something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's different, multiple reasons, multiple sources. I think there's maybe some interdimensional something going on, as well as other stuff going on. But there's something going on. There is something real. The phenomenon is real. There's some connection with other unusual phenomena. Just keep an open mind, and don't judge an entire group of people by a handful of people. And, you know, hopefully someday we'll all find out more of what the truth is.
I think we're getting there. Everybody, big round of applause for Debbie Jordan Kauble.
Thank you. Appreciate it.